Welcome back to this week's podcast episode. And today we're going to continue our series on burnout. And I want to look today at the consequences of burnout. How does it manifest? It manifests in physical, emotional, and cognitive ways. So you might have fatigue, sleep disturbances, frequent illnesses. You start to emotionally disconnect, you're irritable, you're cynical, you've lost motivation, you are not feeling creative or focused. It's hard to make decisions about things. You really start to disconnect from your job altogether. And it can lead to a lot of disengagement from research and teaching. It can derail your career. So burnout is super serious. It's to be avoided at all costs, if possible. It's why I am an academic coach. I'm trying to prevent that happening with everybody that I coach, right? So I coach in ways that enables them to work smarter, faster, more efficient, and not get bogged down in the weeds of the drama and the trauma that is going to drag them into the burnout abyss. But if you haven't had my coaching and if you are now in the midst of a burnout episode, I want to talk about some of the things you can do to resolve burnout. Some of these are very straightforward, but others require some fundamental reflections on how we do our jobs in academia. It's both a mindset shift, I think, and there's some practical strategies as well. So how are we going to start going about resolving the burnout? Well, first of all, of course, you have to take a lot of time off and you have to recover. And I mean that in the physical and mental and emotional sense. So I would say 6 months minimum is the time you need to take off if you've experienced an episode of burnout, and potentially longer. And then you will need to come back on a phased return so that you don't step straight back into the fire full throttle. And that's really something that takes a lot of emotional management at a time where you really don't feel like it with HR and occupational health, but you will have to go through those processes in order to manage yourself back properly. So I'm going to give you some generic advice here, and then I'm going to talk about something that I'm going to explore in a little bit more detail in other episodes. But okay, let's begin at the beginning. So first of all, you have to think of a reason that you want to go back. So you have to think about what your purpose for being an academic is. But I'm also going to put an amendment here, and how you can pursue that purpose within the limits of a 40-hour week. Like, what are your core motivations? Usually people become academics because they like to learn things, for example. They like discovering new things. They like to read about their subject area. Maybe you like teaching. It doesn't matter what it is, right? Let's try and reconnect with the reason you became an academic. But then you have to adapt the way you have been working, because that has not served you. It's important that you know that the work you're doing aligns to your own values, but it's also important to remember you're not going to make the institution bend to those values. Okay? Your values are yours, they're not your institution's. Second thing, learning to prioritize and protect your time. Now, this is something you have clearly not been doing if you became burnt out, right? Because if you were practicing prioritization and protecting your time, you would not have burned out. This is a key technique of working in academia that I teach my clients as the fundamental entry point, no matter what they come to me about. They might be like, can you help me with this paragraph in my journal article. And I'll be like, yep, but let's talk about prioritizing and protecting your time first, right? So no matter what they come to me with, I'm always straight in on this, because this is the basic entry point of protecting yourself. Because everything is urgent, but it's not really in academia, you are tempted to be in this responsive, busy work mode all the time. And that is why you get burnt out. No should be your first response to everything until you have had considered time to work out whether or not you can actually do it within your paid 40-hour week. In order for you to know that, because clearly you have not been a good judge of this in the past, you need to be somebody who is tracking their time, finding out how long does it take me to prepare my classes? How long does it take me to grade a paper? How long does it take me to meet with a student about X? How long does it take me to write a review of an article? You need to have those numbers, because you need to be able to plot that in your calendar. When you have a full picture of how long things take you and you are plotting your time in your calendar, you will soon see you do not have the capacity to say yes. But when you are not doing those things, when you've never tracked your time, when you've never used time blocking in your calendar, because there are no demarcations around your time, you just think you can do everything. You just keep on saying yes, because there's nothing in the calendar saying, where's that going to go? Because every hour is blocked out, lady. So where is that going? Because you don't have that discipline of using the calendar in that way, you keep on saying yes. And that is how we do overwork. That's how we get into that situation. So blocking out the calendar, understanding how much time you have to block for any given task is really, really critical. You have to audit your responsibilities and get rid of some. The amount of responsibilities that you had before you went out off sick were not doable. That's why you went off sick. You cannot come back and resume all of those same responsibilities. This is just going to end up burning you out again. You've already been taught once, that's not doable. Now, the people in charge of handing back to you your work do not care. You were doing that before, and now you're going to do this again. So you have to be prepared to fight your corner. They don't care. They are not going to connect A and B. Well, she was doing all this, it burnt her out, therefore I need to take some things off her. No, you are going to have to make those points. You are going to have to do that. You're going to have to say, I'm doing this and this, but not that. That's why I got burnt out. But you really need to have this serious reflection on the things that really led to your burnout so that you can have that conversation effectively. Setting boundaries around your time, critical. Setting boundaries. I am not going to grade for any more than 15 minutes on an essay, because that is what my time matrix allocation is. That's all I'm allocated by my department, and therefore that is all I'm going to give it. Whether that aligns with your values about what proper feedback is irrelevant. You cannot invent time. You can't. So if 15 minutes is all you're given, 15 minutes is what you should be spending. So you have to draw those boundaries. And it's hard. If you're not used to doing that, it is very difficult. But this is the thing that will save you. It will save you from another episode of burnout. Another classic piece of advice about burnout, although I honestly think this must be in relation to the corporate world rather than the academic world, is strategic delegation. Now, for most of us, we're not in a position to delegate anything. But there are times we can delegate things. We can hire a PhD student to do a few jobs for us. If we're in a team of teaching and we're the course leader, we can delegate who is going to do what, who is responsible for what. We don't have to take it all on our shoulders. So where you can delegate, make sure you do. Next, and this is a big one, reframe what you think of as productivity. I'm going to have an episode on this. The way in which I talk about productivity is not the way other people talk about productivity. So, but you need to reframe what you think about productivity. So, productivity isn't responsiveness. It is not answering email the fastest, being the most present, attending every meeting, going to every open day, doing all of the visible, here's my body in this space kind of things. That is not productivity. That's responsiveness, and that does not get rewarded in academia. Instead, think of productivity in terms of producing value, work that produces value. Think about the quality of the work that you are doing and the impact that work has. So this is about deliberate, practiced writing sessions, making realistic goals for yourself, celebrating progress, forgetting all about the external metrics. Because when you are doing those things, when you are engaging in deliberate practice of writing every day, the metrics take care of themselves. You never have to think about it. This is the one metric that counts, and you're doing it. So you can forget all about the KPIs and the metrics and the financial position of your institution. Forget it. It doesn't mean anything. If you are doing what you're supposed to do, you don't need to listen to any of that chatter, right? So think about productivity, not as busy work, but as producing things of value. Next, support networks. Now, this is tricky. This is a tricky one. We have to have a circle of trust. We have to have people we can rely on, because burnout produces isolation. And it does it in so many insidious ways. Like if you have gone off sick with burnout, no one is allowed to contact you. The head of school isn't allowed to tell colleagues who may really care about you and wonder where the hell you have gone. He's not allowed to tell them that you're off sick with stress. And that's why they don't contact you. He's not allowed to contact you because it's harassing you when you're on sick leave. HR shouldn't be contacting you, same reason. So suddenly you feel like you're off on stress and nobody cares about you. That's not true. It's just the way in which it works, right? So if you want people to support you, you have to be prepared to reach out and let them know what's going on. I'm going to segue back to my shame podcast, and I understand the reasons you might not want to do that, but hopefully you have an inner circle that you will be able to lean on, because being isolated only makes this work. So I would encourage you to engage with that circle of trust, but you definitely should not be doing any work while you're on sick leave. When you're back at work, I think being able to have confidential sort of conversations is useful. It's good to be able to be honest about the way things are in academia. However, it's very bad if all your interactions with your colleagues is just one big moan fest, because I think that is incredibly debilitating from a sort of motivation standpoint. So there's a fine line between everybody going, yeah, this is crazy, and then it being just one long moan fest. And there's nothing ever positive is ever said to one another. And I've been in both of those scenarios. So I don't think that's helpful for your recovery. Right? We don't want to be in denial, but we also don't want to wallow. Next, rest and recovery. Like I said, take minimum 6 months. Sleep, physical activity, delete everything off your phone. Do not, and keep it deleted. You should never have your email on your phone. If people are contacting me on WhatsApp, delete WhatsApp. Seriously, work should never be contacting you on your phone. This is such an egregious invasion of your personal space. I feel enraged on your behalf if that is happening. Stop, block everybody. I would just never be dealing with that. The only way they can contact you is if you turn on your computer and open the email app, and you're not going to be doing that, right? So cut everything off. You do not want that poison in your pocket. Seek professional support. This is the next thing. Have a coach, have a counselor, have a therapist. I would absolutely recommend you get some psychological support, particularly around those issues that may have driven you into thinking that certain behaviors are expected or you're a terrible person, because that's not really coaching, that's more counseling and therapy, because those things are really deep inside, and without that being dealt with, you will revert to type, right? It's quite likely that you'll just do the same things all over again. Now, of course, I have worked with people who have burnt out, have gone back, have had my coaching, have not gone back down the slide without the therapy. But I would always encourage everybody to, depending on what's driven the burnout, right, to really do some self-analysis and wonder, maybe I need a little bit of psychological help so that I don't end up right back in those same patterns of thinking which have led to the burnout. Now, going forward, burnout isn't failure. It's a signal. It's feedback. And what the feedback is telling you is the way in which you have approached this job does not work. It's not working for you. And that's the only thing that matters. It's made you sick. It's made you stressed. Burnout is a feedback mechanism. It is your body saying this far and no further. And I want you to listen very clearly to that message. It is not about working harder or working smarter, or it's not about any of that, right? Something is up in the work-life ecosystem, and you're getting a very big signal that all is not well. So it is an opportunity to recalibrate how you are going to thrive in the rest of your academic career. I really do think that. And then that is the point where a coach can really come in and help you on that journey towards success with all of these things in mind. Sustainable academia is possible, but it does require you to recalibrate your hopes and your dreams for what academia was meant to be into what it actually is. You need to work with focus, intention, and you need to be working to a set number of hours and no more. When you have that mindset, people who have burnt out can go on to do great things, right? They can recalibrate and move forward. You can get joy back in your academic career, but it's a journey, right? It's not a click of a finger situation. So this is what I wanted to talk about with burnout. If you have got any further things that you want me to explore around the issue of burnout, I'm more than happy to do so. But these are my opening gambits on academic burnout. I hope that discussion has been helpful to you and that it's given you something to reflect on.